Question 1. Benchmark analysis indicates that a US-based investment firm is migrating its customer account management system to a public cloud. Given the firm's obligations under the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA, and the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, PCI DSS, which of the following design considerations best ensures regulatory compliance and protects sensitive customer financial information? Option A. Implementing a multi-layered security architecture that includes robust data encryption at rest and in transit, strict access controls, comprehensive audit logging, and continuous monitoring, tailored to the specific data sensitivity and regulatory requirements. Option B. Selecting a cloud provider with a broad range of services and competitive pricing, and relying on the provider's standard security configurations. Option C. Focusing solely on perimeter security measures and assuming that the cloud provider handles all internal data protection responsibilities. Option D. Prioritizing rapid deployment and scalability by utilizing serverless computing services without a detailed review of their specific compliance certifications for financial data. Correct answer is B. Selecting a cloud provider with a broad range of services and competitive pricing, and relying on the provider's standard security configurations. Explanation. Scenario analysis. Designing a cloud solution for a financial services organization in the United States presents significant professional challenges due to the stringent regulatory landscape. The primary challenge lies in balancing the benefits of cloud adoption, such as scalability and agility, with the absolute necessity of adhering to regulations like the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA, and the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, PCI DSS. These regulations mandate specific controls for protecting sensitive customer financial information, and any design decision must prioritize compliance to avoid severe penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. The complexity arises from interpreting and applying these regulations to a dynamic cloud environment, which differs significantly from traditional on-premises infrastructure. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive risk assessment and the implementation of a defense-in-depth security strategy that directly addresses the requirements of relevant U.S. financial regulations. This means understanding the data classification of information to be stored and processed in the cloud, identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities, and selecting cloud services and configurations that meet or exceed regulatory mandates for data encryption, access control, audit logging, and incident response. Specifically, for GLBA, this includes implementing administrative, technical, and physical safeguards. For PCI DSS, it involves adhering to the 12 core requirements, such as building and maintaining a secure network, protecting cardholder data, and implementing a strong information security program. A cloud solution designed with these principles ensures that sensitive data remains protected throughout its lifecycle, meeting the spirit and letter of U.S. financial regulations. Incorrect approach is analysis. An incorrect approach would be to prioritize cost savings or rapid deployment over regulatory compliance. For instance, choosing a cloud service provider solely based on the lowest cost without verifying their compliance certifications, e.g., SOC 2 Type Roman 2, ISO 27001, PCI DSS attestation of compliance, for the specific services being used is a significant regulatory failure. This could lead to the organization inadvertently violating GLBA safeguarding provisions or PCI DSS requirements for secure environments. Another failure would be to assume that the cloud provider's inherent security features are sufficient without implementing appropriate configurations and additional controls tailored to the organization's specific data and risk profile. This oversight can result in inadequate data protection, noncompliance with data residency requirements, if applicable, and insufficient audit trails, all of which are critical for regulatory adherence in the U.S. financial sector. Furthermore, neglecting to establish clear roles and responsibilities for security and compliance between the organization and the cloud provider is a common pitfall that can lead to gaps in oversight and accountability, ultimately resulting in noncompliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals designing cloud solutions for U.S. financial institutions must adopt a risk-based, compliance-first mindset. The decision-making process should begin with a thorough understanding of applicable regulations, GLBA, PCI DSS, state-specific data privacy laws, etc. This understanding should then inform the selection of cloud services, architectural design, and security controls. A structured approach involves: 1. Identifying all sensitive data types and their regulatory handling requirements. 2. Conducting a detailed risk assessment of potential cloud deployments. 3. Selecting cloud providers and services that demonstrate robust compliance and security postures relevant to the identified risks and data. 4. Designing a layered security architecture, defense in depth, that includes encryption, access management, network segmentation, and continuous monitoring. 5. Establishing clear governance, audit, and incident response plans. 6. Regularly reviewing and updating the design and controls to adapt to evolving threats and regulatory changes. This systematic process ensures that the cloud solution is not only functional and cost-effective, but, more importantly, compliant and secure. Question 2. Compliance review shows that the current cloud deployment process for new services involves multiple manual approval gates and extensive manual testing, leading to significant delays and occasional inconsistencies. A proposed optimization aims to streamline this process. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of process optimization for a secure and compliant cloud environment? Option A. Eliminate all manual approval gates to expedite the deployment of new services, relying solely on the development team's self-assessment of compliance. Option B. Focus on reducing the time spent on manual testing by skipping certain validation steps for less critical services. Option C. Increase the number of manual review steps for all deployments to ensure maximum oversight and prevent any potential misconfigurations. Option D. Implement automated pipelines for code integration, testing, and deployment, incorporating automated security and compliance checks at each stage, and reducing manual approvals to exception-based scenarios. The correct answer is D. Implement automated pipelines for code integration, testing, and deployment, incorporating automated security and compliance checks at each stage, and reducing manual approvals to exception-based scenarios. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud design, balancing the need for rapid deployment and agility with the imperative of maintaining robust security and compliance. The professional challenge lies in identifying and implementing process optimizations that demonstrably improve efficiency without compromising the integrity of the cloud environment or violating regulatory mandates. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between superficial changes and those that yield tangible, sustainable improvements. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the core principles of process optimization within a regulated cloud environment. By focusing on automating repetitive tasks, standardizing deployment pipelines, and implementing continuous monitoring, it enhances efficiency, reduces human error, and ensures that security and compliance checks are embedded throughout the lifecycle. This aligns with the principles of security by design and compliance by design, which are fundamental to responsible cloud architecture. The automation of testing and validation further ensures that changes are thoroughly vetted before deployment, minimizing the risk of introducing vulnerabilities or non-compliance. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing the number of approval gates without implementing compensating controls is professionally unacceptable. This would represent a direct regulatory failure by potentially bypassing necessary checks and balances designed to ensure security and compliance. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for risk management and the potential harm that insecure or non-compliant systems can cause. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of deployment over thorough testing and validation is also professionally unacceptable. This approach creates a significant security risk by allowing potentially flawed or vulnerable code to enter production. It violates the principle of due diligence in cloud design and could lead to data breaches or service disruptions, resulting in severe regulatory penalties and reputational damage. A further incorrect approach that involves manual intervention for all deployment steps, even for routine updates, is inefficient and prone to human error. While it might appear to offer control, it hinders agility and scalability, which are key benefits of cloud computing. This approach fails to optimize processes and can indirectly lead to compliance issues due to delays and inconsistencies. The professional reasoning framework for such situations involves a systematic evaluation of proposed optimization against established security and compliance frameworks. Professionals should ask, does this optimization demonstrably improve efficiency? Does it introduce new risks? Does it maintain or enhance our compliance posture? Are there automated controls to mitigate any residual risks? Prioritizing solutions that offer a clear return on investment in terms of efficiency and security, while rigorously adhering to regulatory requirements, is paramount. Question 3. The audit findings indicate that sensitive customer data stored in the cloud environment is not consistently protected against unauthorized access, posing a significant compliance risk. Which of the following design principles best addresses this finding within the Cisco Cloud Framework? Option A. Segregate sensitive data into a separate cloud storage tier without implementing additional encryption or access controls beyond basic network segmentation. Option B. Rely solely on the cloud provider's default security configurations for data storage and access controls. Option C. Minimize the amount of sensitive data stored in the cloud to reduce the attack surface. Option D. Implement end-to-end data encryption for all sensitive data, both at rest and in transit, and establish robust key management practices. The correct answer is D. Implement end-to-end data encryption for all sensitive data, both at rest and in transit, and establish robust key management practices. Explanation. The audit findings indicate a potential gap in the organization's cloud security posture, specifically concerning the management of sensitive data within the cloud environment. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the operational benefits of cloud adoption with the imperative to protect data privacy and comply with relevant regulations. The decision-making process must consider technical feasibility, cost-effectiveness, and most importantly, adherence to the regulatory framework governing data handling in the cloud. The correct approach, which involves implementing robust data encryption at rest and in transit, is best professional practice because it directly addresses the identified risk of unauthorized data access. This aligns with the principles of data minimization and security by design, which are fundamental to responsible cloud architecture. Specifically, within the context of the Cisco Cloud Design Framework, this approach ensures that data remains confidential and protected even in the event of a security breach or unauthorized access to the underlying infrastructure. This proactive measure is a cornerstone of compliance with data protection regulations that mandate safeguarding sensitive information. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction by foregoing encryption would be professionally unacceptable. This failure would directly contravene regulatory requirements that mandate appropriate security measures for sensitive data, potentially leading to significant fines, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. Another incorrect approach, which relies on the cloud provider's default security settings without independent verification or enhancement, is also professionally unsound. While cloud providers offer security features, the responsibility for data protection ultimately rests with the organization. Over-reliance on default settings without a tailored security strategy can leave critical vulnerabilities unaddressed, violating the principle of due diligence and potentially breaching regulatory obligations. A third incorrect approach, which involves segregating data based on perceived sensitivity without a clear policy or technical enforcement, is problematic because it relies on subjective judgment and lacks the automated controls necessary for consistent and reliable data protection, thus failing to meet the stringent requirements of data governance and compliance. Professionals should employ a risk-based decision-making framework. This involves identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities, assessing their impact, and then selecting controls that effectively mitigate those risks while remaining compliant with all applicable regulations. For cloud design, this means thoroughly understanding the data lifecycle, the regulatory landscape, and the capabilities of the chosen cloud platform to implement a layered security strategy that prioritizes data protection. Question 4. Process analysis reveals that a US-based financial services firm is designing its cloud strategy to enhance scalability and reduce operational costs. The firm handles highly sensitive customer financial data and is subject to stringent regulations like the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA, and SEC guidelines. Which cloud deployment model best aligns with these regulatory mandates while enabling the desired business benefits? Option A. A private cloud model, building and managing an entirely on-premises cloud infrastructure to maintain maximum control. Option B. A purely public cloud model, migrating all applications and data to a single, highly scalable public cloud provider. Option C. A hybrid cloud model, allowing sensitive data to remain in a controlled private environment while leveraging public cloud for less sensitive applications and services. Option D, a multi-cloud strategy, distributing workloads across multiple public cloud providers without a unified governance framework. The correct answer is C, a hybrid cloud model, allowing sensitive data to remain in a controlled private environment while leveraging public cloud for less sensitive applications and services. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge in selecting the most appropriate cloud deployment model for a financial services organization operating under strict U.S. regulatory frameworks, specifically the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act (GLBA) and relevant SEC Securities and Exchange Commission guidelines concerning data privacy and security. The core challenge lies in balancing the benefits of cloud adoption, such as scalability and cost efficiency, with the non-negotiable requirements for protecting sensitive customer financial information. Careful judgment is required to ensure compliance, maintain customer trust, and avoid significant legal and financial repercussions. The correct approach involves a hybrid cloud model. This represents best professional practice because it allows the organization to leverage the agility and innovation of public cloud services for less sensitive workloads, while retaining critical financial data and core processing systems on premises or in a private cloud environment. The segregation directly addresses GLBA requirements for safeguarding customer information by allowing for more granular control over data security and access for highly regulated data. SEC guidelines also emphasize robust data protection and auditability, which are more readily achievable with a hybrid model where sensitive data can be kept within a controlled perimeter. This approach allows for a phased migration, enabling thorough security assessments and compliance validation at each step. An incorrect approach would be to adopt a purely public cloud model for all financial data and applications. This would represent a significant regulatory failure under GLBA and SEC guidelines. These regulations mandate stringent controls over the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of customer financial information. While public cloud providers offer robust security features, the shared responsibility model can introduce complexities in demonstrating full compliance, especially concerning the specific data residency and access control requirements for financial institutions. The lack of direct control over the underlying infrastructure for all sensitive data would likely be viewed as a failure to implement adequate safeguards. Another incorrect approach would be to implement a multi-cloud strategy without a clear governance framework and risk assessment specifically tailored to financial data. While multi-cloud can offer benefits, it can also exacerbate compliance challenges by increasing the complexity of managing security policies, data protection, and audit trails across disparate environments. Without a unified strategy, it becomes difficult to ensure consistent adherence to GLBA and SEC mandates across all cloud providers, potentially leading to gaps in security and compliance. A final incorrect approach would be to prioritize cost savings and operational efficiency above all else, leading to a rushed migration to a public cloud without adequate due diligence on the provider's compliance certifications and the organization's ability to meet regulatory obligations within that environment. This demonstrates a failure to prioritize regulatory adherence and risk management, which are paramount in the financial services sector. The professional reasoning framework for such situations involves a risk-based approach. First, thoroughly understand the regulatory landscape, GLBA, SEC, etc., and its specific implications for cloud adoption. Second, conduct a comprehensive data classification and risk assessment to identify sensitive data and associated compliance requirements. Third, evaluate different cloud deployment models, public, private, hybrid, multi-cloud, against these requirements, focusing on security, compliance, data governance, and operational capabilities. Fourth, engage with legal and compliance teams throughout the design and implementation process. Finally, establish a continuous monitoring and auditing framework to ensure ongoing compliance and adapt to evolving threats and regulations. Question 5. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a key client in the financial services sector is seeking to migrate sensitive customer data to a cloud environment. During the design phase, a prominent cloud vendor strongly advocates for the adoption of their proprietary data encryption service, claiming it offers superior performance and integration with their other services. However, internal security reviews suggest that this proprietary solution may not fully align with the specific data residency and auditability requirements mandated by the client's regulatory framework. As the cloud architect, What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Reject the vendor's proprietary encryption service outright and mandate the use of a generic, open-source encryption tool without further evaluation to ensure maximum compliance. Option B. Inform the client that the vendor's proprietary solution is the only viable option for their needs and advise them to seek legal counsel regarding compliance. Option C. Immediately adopt the vendor's proprietary encryption service, as their strong recommendation implies it meets all necessary compliance standards and will expedite the migration process. Option D. Conduct an independent technical and compliance assessment of the vendor's proprietary encryption service to determine its suitability against the client's specific regulatory requirements and security posture, while also exploring alternative, standards-based encryption solutions. The correct answer is D. Conduct an independent technical and compliance assessment of the vendor's proprietary encryption service to determine its suitability against the client's specific regulatory requirements and security posture, while also exploring alternative, standards-based encryption solutions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a vendor's desire to showcase their product's capabilities and the client's need for a secure and compliant cloud design. The pressure to adopt a specific vendor's solution without thorough due diligence, especially when it might introduce security vulnerabilities or deviate from established compliance frameworks, requires careful ethical and professional judgment. The core of the challenge lies in balancing business objectives with the paramount responsibility of ensuring the client's data security and regulatory adherence. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a vendor-neutral, requirements-driven design process. This aligns with ethical principles of professional integrity and client advocacy. By focusing on the client's specific needs, security posture, and regulatory obligations, e.g., data residency, privacy laws relevant to the exam's jurisdiction, the architect ensures that the chosen solution is not only technically sound, but also legally and ethically compliant. This approach fosters trust and demonstrates a commitment to the client's long-term success and risk mitigation, which are fundamental to professional cloud design. An incorrect approach that involves accepting the vendor's proposed solution without independent validation fails to uphold professional responsibility. This could lead to regulatory noncompliance if the vendor's solution does not meet specific data protection mandates or industry standards. Ethically, it represents a failure to act in the client's best interest, potentially exposing them to significant risks. Another incorrect approach, that of immediately dismissing the vendor's proposal without understanding its potential benefits or how it might be adapted, demonstrates a lack of open-mindedness and could lead to suboptimal design choices. It fails to explore all viable options that might meet the client's requirements effectively and efficiently. A third incorrect approach, which involves prioritizing the vendor relationship over the client's security needs, is a clear ethical breach and a failure to adhere to professional standards of conduct. This could result in severe legal and financial repercussions for the client and damage the architect's professional reputation. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the client's requirements, including security, compliance, and business objectives. This should be followed by an objective evaluation of all potential solutions, including those proposed by vendors, against these requirements. A critical step is to conduct thorough due diligence, including security assessments and compliance checks for any proposed technology. When faced with vendor pressure, professionals must maintain their independence and advocate for the client's best interests, even if it means challenging vendor recommendations. Documenting the decision-making process and the rationale behind the chosen design is also crucial for accountability and transparency. Question 6. The performance metrics show a consistent increase in application response times and a rise in error rates over the past week, impacting user experience and potentially nearing the thresholds defined in our service-level agreements. Option A. Advise stakeholders to temporarily accept the degraded performance, citing potential transient network issues, and postpone any significant remediation efforts until the next scheduled maintenance window. Option B. Immediately provision additional compute instances and increase database capacity to proactively handle the perceived load, assuming the issue is purely resource-bound. Option C. Conduct a thorough root cause analysis by examining application logs, resource utilization metrics, CPU, memory, network, disk I/O, and database performance. Based on findings, implement targeted optimizations such as code refactoring, query tuning, or caching strategies before considering resource scaling. Option D. Implement a broad, system-wide configuration change across all cloud services, such as increasing default timeouts, without specific analysis of the performance bottleneck. The correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough root cause analysis by examining application logs, resource utilization metrics, CPU, memory, network, disk I/O, and database performance. Based on findings, implement targeted optimizations such as code refactoring, query tuning, or caching strategies before considering resource scaling. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud design, balancing performance optimization with cost efficiency and adherence to service-level agreements, SLAs. The professional challenge lies in interpreting performance data, understanding the underlying causes of degradation, and selecting a remediation strategy that is both technically sound and financially responsible, all while ensuring compliance with contractual obligations. The need for deep analysis stems from the potential for over-provisioning, leading to unnecessary costs, or under-provisioning, leading to performance issues and SLA breaches. The correct approach involves a systematic investigation into the root cause of the performance metrics. This includes analyzing resource utilization, CPU, memory, network I/O, disk I/O, application logs, and network latency. Identifying specific bottlenecks, such as inefficient database queries, suboptimal application code, or network congestion, is crucial. Once the root cause is identified, the best practice is to implement targeted optimizations. This might involve code refactoring, database tuning, or adjusting network configurations. If these optimizations are insufficient, then scaling resources, vertical or horizontal, becomes a consideration, but only after exhausting less costly and more efficient solutions. This approach aligns with best practices for cloud resource management, emphasizing efficiency and cost-effectiveness while ensuring service delivery. It also implicitly supports adherence to SLAs by proactively addressing performance issues before they impact end users or violate contractual terms. An incorrect approach would be to immediately scale up resources without a thorough investigation. This is professionally unsound because it fails to address the potential underlying inefficiencies. It leads to increased operational costs without a guaranteed improvement in performance if the bottleneck is not resource-bound. This can be seen as a failure in due diligence and responsible resource management. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the performance metrics altogether, assuming they are transient or not critical. This is a direct violation of professional responsibility and can lead to significant SLA breaches, reputational damage, and financial penalties. It demonstrates a lack of proactive monitoring and a failure to uphold service commitments. A third incorrect approach might be to implement a quick fix that doesn't address the root cause, such as simply restarting services. While this might offer temporary relief, it doesn't solve the underlying problem and will likely lead to recurring performance issues, indicating a superficial understanding and a failure to apply robust problem-solving techniques. The professional reasoning process should involve a structured approach to problem solving. 1. Monitor and alert. Establish comprehensive monitoring of key performance indicators, KPI, and set up alerts for deviations. 2. Analyze and diagnose. When alerts trigger, conduct a deep dive into the data to identify the root cause of the performance issue. 3. Strategize and plan. Develop a remediation plan that prioritizes efficiency and cost-effectiveness, considering optimizations before scaling. 4. Implement and test. Execute the plan and rigorously test the impact of the changes. 5. Review and iterate. Continuously review performance and iterate on the solution as needed. Question 7. Stakeholder feedback indicates a strong desire to reduce immediate operational costs for a new cloud deployment by utilizing a less expensive, publicly available cloud storage service for sensitive customer data, bypassing the standard approved vendor list and security review process. As the cloud architect responsible for designing this solution, what is the most professional and compliant course of action? Option A. Immediately investigate the feasibility of the proposed storage service, conducting a thorough risk assessment and engaging with the security and compliance teams to ensure it meets all regulatory requirements and organizational policies before proceeding. Option B. Implement the proposed storage service as requested by the stakeholder to demonstrate responsiveness and achieve the desired cost savings, assuming the risk of potential compliance issues. Option C. Proceed with the proposed storage service, but document the stakeholder's request and the potential risks in a memo to management, shifting the responsibility for any future compliance failures. Option D. Inform the stakeholder that their request cannot be fulfilled due to existing policies and proceed with the approved vendor list without further discussion. The correct answer is A. Immediately investigate the feasibility of the proposed storage service, conducting a thorough risk assessment, and engaging with the security and compliance teams to ensure it meets all regulatory requirements and organizational policies before proceeding. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it involves balancing the immediate cost-saving desires of a key stakeholder with the long-term security and compliance requirements of a cloud design. The stakeholder's request, while seemingly beneficial in the short term, could introduce significant risks if not properly evaluated against the regulatory framework governing cloud deployments. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the proposed cloud solution is not only cost-effective, but also adheres to all applicable regulations, thereby protecting the organization from potential legal repercussions, data breaches, and reputational damage. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough risk assessment and compliance verification before implementing any changes. This aligns with the principles of responsible cloud design, which mandate that security and regulatory adherence are foundational. By engaging with the security and compliance teams, the architect ensures that the proposed solution meets the organization's obligations under relevant regulations, such as those pertaining to data privacy and industry-specific compliance standards. This proactive stance mitigates risks and builds trust by demonstrating a commitment to secure and compliant operations. An incorrect approach that bypasses established security and compliance review processes is professionally unacceptable. This failure represents a direct violation of the duty of care owed to the organization and its stakeholders. It demonstrates a disregard for the established governance framework, which is designed to prevent costly mistakes and ensure adherence to legal and ethical standards. Such an approach could lead to the deployment of a non-compliant solution, exposing the organization to fines, legal action, and severe reputational damage. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes the stakeholder's immediate request without fully understanding the implications for data residency and sovereignty is also professionally unsound. Data residency and sovereignty are critical regulatory considerations, particularly in cloud environments, as they dictate where data can be stored and processed. Ignoring these requirements can lead to non-compliance with data protection laws, resulting in significant penalties. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Understand the stakeholder's request and its underlying motivation. 2. Identify potential risks and compliance implications associated with the request. 3. Consult relevant internal policies, regulatory frameworks, and legal counsel. 4. Engage with subject matter experts, including security and compliance teams. 5. Evaluate alternative solutions that meet both business needs and regulatory requirements. 6. Document the decision-making process and the rationale behind the chosen approach. 7. Communicate the findings and recommendations clearly to all stakeholders. Question 8. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of a data breach if sensitive customer information is stored in a cloud service that does not explicitly meet specific data residency requirements. The business unit is pushing for an immediate deployment of a new customer-facing application, and the chosen cloud service offers the fastest integration path. What is the most responsible course of action for the cloud architect? Option A. Proceed with the deployment using the fastest integration path, as the business unit requires immediate access to the new application, and address any potential compliance gaps post-deployment. Option B. Select an alternative cloud service that is known for its rapid deployment capabilities, even if it has less robust security features, to meet the business unit's timeline. Option C. Conduct a detailed security and compliance review of the chosen cloud service, verifying its adherence to data residency requirements and assessing its overall security posture before proceeding with deployment. Option D. Deploy the application using the chosen cloud service, but implement additional encryption layers to mitigate the risk of data residency noncompliance. The correct answer is C. Conduct a detailed security and compliance review of the chosen cloud service, verifying its adherence to data residency requirements, and assessing its overall security posture before proceeding with deployment. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge where a cloud architect must balance the immediate business need for rapid deployment with the long-term security and compliance implications of a chosen cloud service. The pressure to deliver quickly can lead to overlooking critical security controls or compliance requirements, potentially exposing the organization to significant risks. The architect's responsibility extends beyond technical implementation to ensuring the solution adheres to relevant regulations and ethical standards. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves prioritizing a thorough security and compliance review before proceeding with the deployment. This aligns with the principles of secure design and responsible cloud adoption. Specifically, it adheres to the foundational principles of cloud security and governance, which mandate that security and compliance considerations are integrated from the outset of any cloud solution design. This proactive stance ensures that the chosen services meet the organization's security posture and regulatory obligations, preventing potential breaches, data loss, and legal repercussions. It reflects a commitment to ethical practice by safeguarding sensitive data and maintaining stakeholder trust. Incorrect approaches analysis. Choosing a cloud service based solely on its perceived ease of integration and speed of deployment, without a comprehensive security and compliance assessment, represents a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This approach neglects the duty of care to protect organizational data and user privacy, potentially violating data protection regulations. It prioritizes expediency over security, creating vulnerabilities that could be exploited. Opting for a service that offers a lower cost but lacks robust security features or clear compliance certifications is also professionally unacceptable. While cost is a factor, it should not supersede the fundamental requirements for data security and regulatory adherence. This decision could lead to non-compliance with industry-specific regulations or general data privacy laws, resulting in fines and reputational damage. Ignoring the potential for data residency issues and choosing a service without verifying its data handling practices is another critical failure. Depending on the jurisdiction and the type of data being processed, data residency requirements are paramount. Failure to comply can lead to severe legal penalties and loss of customer trust. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to cloud design. This involves identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities, assessing their impact, and implementing appropriate controls. When evaluating cloud services, a structured process should be followed, including understanding business requirements, identifying relevant regulatory frameworks, performing due diligence on service providers, including security certifications and compliance reports, conducting a thorough risk assessment, and documenting all decisions and justifications. This systematic approach ensures that technical solutions are not only functional, but also secure, compliant, and ethically sound. Question 9. The evaluation methodology shows that a proposed cloud-based data analytics platform can significantly reduce processing times for sensitive financial data. However, the design team has not explicitly verified if the proposed data storage and access controls meet the specific requirements outlined by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, for financial record-keeping and auditability. Which of the following approaches best aligns with professional best practices for designing such a cloud solution? Option A. Prioritize the cost savings and performance improvements identified, and document the potential SEC compliance risks as a separate project to be addressed in a future iteration of the platform. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive review of the proposed platform's data handling, storage, and access mechanisms against the specific SEC regulations for financial data, and adjust the design to ensure full compliance before proceeding with implementation. Option C. Implement the optimized platform and rely on the cloud provider's attestation reports to confirm SEC compliance, without performing an independent verification of the specific data flows and controls within the design solution. Option D. Proceed with the implementation of the optimized data analytics platform, assuming that standard cloud security measures are sufficient to meet SEC requirements, and address any potential compliance issues post-deployment. The correct answer is D. Proceed with the implementation of the optimized data analytics platform, assuming that standard cloud security measures are sufficient to meet SEC requirements, and address any potential compliance issues post-deployment. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud design, optimizing processes for efficiency and cost-effectiveness while adhering to stringent regulatory requirements. The professional challenge lies in balancing the pursuit of innovation and performance gains with the non-negotiable need for compliance. Misinterpreting or overlooking regulatory mandates can lead to significant financial penalties, reputational damage, and operational disruptions. The correct approach prioritizes a thorough understanding of the specific regulatory framework applicable to the cloud environment being designed. In the context of Cisco cloud design, this would involve referencing relevant U.S. federal regulations such as those from the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, for financial data, HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, for healthcare data, or NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, guidelines for cybersecurity. A process optimization strategy that demonstrably aligns with these regulations, perhaps by incorporating automated compliance checks, data residency controls, and robust audit trails, represents best professional practice. This proactive integration ensures that optimization efforts do not inadvertently create compliance gaps, thereby safeguarding the organization and its stakeholders. An incorrect approach would be to implement process optimizations based solely on performance metrics or cost reduction targets, without a corresponding assessment of their regulatory impact. For instance, adopting a new data processing workflow that inadvertently stores sensitive data in a non-compliant geographic region would violate data residency regulations. Similarly, automating certain security controls without ensuring they meet the minimum standards set by relevant U.S. regulatory bodies would be a failure. Ethically, professionals have a duty to act in the best interest of their clients and employers, which includes upholding legal and regulatory obligations. Ignoring these obligations, even with the intention of improving efficiency, constitutes a serious professional and ethical lapse. The professional decision-making process should involve a multi-stage approach. First, clearly identify all applicable regulatory frameworks. Second, assess current processes against these frameworks to identify any existing gaps or potential risks. Third, when considering process optimization, conduct a regulatory impact assessment for each proposed change. Fourth, integrate compliance requirements into the design and implementation phases, rather than treating them as an afterthought. Finally, establish ongoing monitoring and auditing mechanisms to ensure continued adherence to both performance goals and regulatory mandates. Question 10. Assessment of a cloud solution design for a U.S.-based investment advisory firm, which handles sensitive client financial data, requires careful consideration of regulatory compliance. The firm is exploring a hybrid cloud model to leverage both on-premises infrastructure and public cloud services. Which design approach best balances the firm's need for agility and cost efficiency with the stringent requirements of U.S. financial regulation, such as SEC Rule 17a-4 and GLBA? Option A. Focus on deploying the most cutting-edge cloud-native technologies to enhance performance and scalability, deferring detailed regulatory compliance checks until after the initial deployment. Option B. Adopt a lift-and-shift approach for all existing applications to the public cloud, relying on the cloud provider's default security settings to meet regulatory obligations. Option C. Implement a hybrid cloud architecture that prioritizes selecting cloud services with robust, auditable security controls and data residency options that align with regulatory mandates, ensuring continuous compliance monitoring and documentation. Option D. Prioritize the lowest-cost public cloud services available to maximize immediate cost savings, assuming existing on-premises security measures will adequately protect data in the hybrid environment. The correct answer is C. Implement a hybrid cloud architecture that prioritizes selecting cloud services with robust, auditable security controls and data residency options that align with regulatory mandates, ensuring continuous compliance monitoring and documentation. Explanation. Scenario analysis. Designing a Cisco cloud solution for a financial services firm presents significant professional challenges due to the stringent regulatory landscape governing data privacy, security, and operational resilience. The firm must adhere to specific U.S. federal and state regulations, such as those mandated by the SEC, FINRA, and potentially state-specific data breach notification laws. The complexity arises from balancing the agility and cost efficiency of cloud adoption with the non-negotiable requirements for auditability, data integrity, and robust security controls. A misstep in design or implementation can lead to severe financial penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. The decision-making process must be grounded in a thorough understanding of these regulatory mandates and their implications for cloud architecture. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive risk assessment and a phased implementation strategy that prioritizes compliance with relevant U.S. financial regulations. This means meticulously mapping cloud service capabilities against regulatory requirements, such as data residency, encryption standards, access controls, and audit logging. A key element is selecting cloud services and configurations that demonstrably meet or exceed these standards, often involving a defense-in-depth security model. Engaging with legal and compliance teams early and continuously throughout the design process is paramount. This ensures that the proposed cloud architecture is not only technically sound, but also legally defensible and ethically responsible. The focus on documented proof of compliance and a clear audit trail for all data handling and security configurations represents best professional practice, directly aligning with the principles of regulatory adherence and due diligence expected in the financial sector. Incorrect approaches analysis. Prioritizing cost savings above all else without a thorough regulatory impact assessment is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This approach risks deploying solutions that are non-compliant, leading to potential breaches of the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA, or SEC Rule 17A4, which mandate data protection and record-keeping for financial institutions. Such a failure could result in substantial fines and legal repercussions. Adopting a lift-and-shift strategy without re-evaluating security and compliance controls for the cloud environment is another professionally unacceptable approach. While seemingly efficient, it often overlooks cloud-native security features and compliance best practices, potentially violating regulations like the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, PCI DSS, if cardholder data is involved, or state-specific data privacy laws. This oversight can lead to vulnerabilities and non-compliance. Focusing solely on the latest cloud technologies without validating their alignment with existing regulatory frameworks is also problematic. While innovation is important, it must be tempered by a deep understanding of the legal obligations. This can lead to the implementation of services that do not meet data sovereignty requirements or lack the necessary audit trails mandated by bodies like FINRA, exposing the firm to regulatory scrutiny and penalties. Professional reasoning. Professionals designing cloud solutions for regulated industries must employ a structured decision-making framework. This framework should begin with a clear identification of all applicable regulations, e.g., SEC, FINRA, GLBA state laws. Next, a detailed risk assessment should be conducted, evaluating how each proposed cloud component and configuration impacts compliance. This should be followed by a gap analysis, comparing current capabilities against regulatory requirements. The design process should then prioritize solutions that demonstrably meet or exceed these requirements, with a strong emphasis on security, data integrity, auditability, and resilience. Continuous engagement with legal, compliance, and security teams is essential throughout the lifecycle. Finally, a robust documentation and validation process must be in place to provide auditable proof of compliance. Question 11. Comparative studies suggest that designing a multi-cloud strategy for a European financial services firm requires careful consideration of data sovereignty and privacy. The firm intends to leverage both public cloud infrastructure for analytics and a private cloud for core banking operations, with the possibility of data exchange between the two. Given the strict requirements of the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, what is the most compliant and professionally sound approach to designing this cloud architecture? Option A. Deploy sensitive customer data to the public cloud for advanced analytics, relying on the cloud provider's standard security measures and assuming that anonymization is sufficient to meet GDPR requirements without explicit verification. Option B. Establish data exchange protocols between the public and private clouds without specifically assessing the geographic location of data processing or the legal basis for any potential cross-border data transfers, as long as the data is encrypted in transit. Option C. Assume that all major public and private cloud providers inherently meet GDPR standards for financial data and focus primarily on optimizing performance and cost across the chosen platforms. Option D. Prioritize selecting cloud services that offer robust data processing agreements and have demonstrable compliance certifications relevant to financial data, ensuring all data processing activities, including intercloud transfers, are mapped and secured according to GDPR principles. The correct answer is D. Prioritize selecting cloud services that offer robust data processing agreements and have demonstrable compliance certifications relevant to financial data, ensuring all data processing activities, including intercloud transfers, are mapped and secured according to GDPR principles. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud design, balancing the need for rapid deployment and agility with the imperative to adhere to stringent data residency and privacy regulations. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying the specific requirements of the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, to a multi-cloud strategy, ensuring that data processing activities, even those involving third-party cloud providers, remain compliant. The core of the difficulty is that, while cloud providers offer flexibility, the responsibility for data protection and compliance ultimately rests with the organization designing and implementing the solution. The correct approach, which involves a thorough assessment of data flows, identification of sensitive data, and the implementation of appropriate technical and organizational measures for each cloud service, represents best professional practice. This aligns directly with GDPR principles such as data minimization, purpose limitation, and accountability. Specifically, Article 28 of the GDPR mandates that data controllers ensure processors, cloud providers, provide sufficient guarantees of compliance. By meticulously mapping data, classifying it, and selecting cloud services that meet specific compliance criteria, e.g., data processing agreements, certifications, the design proactively mitigates risks and demonstrates due diligence. This proactive stance is crucial for avoiding regulatory penalties and maintaining customer trust. An incorrect approach would be to assume that simply using a cloud provider automatically confers compliance. For instance, deploying sensitive personal data to a cloud region without verifying its adherence to GDPR data residency requirements is a direct violation. This failure to conduct due diligence on the cloud provider's infrastructure and contractual obligations constitutes a significant regulatory failure. Another incorrect approach would be to overlook the need for robust data transfer mechanisms when data might be processed outside the EU. Article 44 onwards of the GDPR outlines strict conditions for international data transfers, requiring appropriate safeguards. Ignoring these provisions, perhaps by relying on standard, non-compliant data transfer agreements, would be a clear ethical and regulatory breach. Furthermore, a failure to implement pseudonymization or encryption for data at rest and in transit, where appropriate, would contravene the GDPR emphasis on security and integrity, Article 32. The professional reasoning process for such a scenario should involve a structured risk assessment framework. This begins with understanding the business requirements and the types of data involved. Next, a comprehensive review of applicable regulations, in this case, GDPR, is essential. The design process should then iteratively map data flows against regulatory requirements, identifying potential compliance gaps. For each gap, potential solutions should be evaluated based on their technical feasibility, cost-effectiveness, and most importantly, their ability to achieve regulatory compliance. This involves engaging with cloud providers, reviewing their compliance documentation, and ensuring contractual agreements reflect the necessary protections. Continuous monitoring and auditing are also critical components of a robust cloud design that prioritizes compliance. Question 12. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a comprehensive, multi-layered intrusion detection and prevention system, IPS, for all cloud-based applications would significantly exceed the allocated budget for security enhancements. However, a recent threat intelligence report highlights a specific, emerging attack vector targeting the authentication mechanisms of the chosen SaaS platform, which is currently only protected by basic credential validation. The organization's risk appetite statement indicates a low tolerance for breaches involving customer data, Which of the following approaches best aligns with professional best practices for designing secure cloud solutions under these constraints? Option A. Prioritize implementing advanced, platform-specific security monitoring and anomaly detection for the authentication layer of the SaaS platform, and defer broader IPS implementation until future budget cycles allow. Option B. Invest in a generic cloud-agnostic firewall solution that can be applied to all cloud services, as this offers a broad security posture without the specific cost of a full IPS. Option C. Proceed with the full multi-layered IPS implementation as initially planned, regardless of the budget overage, to ensure the highest level of security across all cloud applications. Option D. Focus solely on enhancing the basic credential validation for the SaaS platform's authentication, as this is the most immediate and cost-effective measure, and assume other attack vectors are low probability. Correct answer is A. Prioritize implementing advanced, platform-specific security monitoring and anomaly detection for the authentication layer of the SaaS platform, and defer broader IPS implementation until future budget cycles allow. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud design, balancing the desire for robust security controls with the practicalities of implementation and ongoing operational costs. The professional challenge lies in accurately assessing the risk associated with a specific threat vector, and then selecting the most appropriate mitigation strategy that aligns with both security objectives and budgetary constraints. This requires a nuanced understanding of the threat landscape, the effectiveness of various security controls, and the potential impact of a security incident. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the identified risk by implementing a layered security strategy that is proportionate to the threat. By focusing on controls that mitigate the specific vulnerabilities of the chosen cloud service and align with the organization's risk appetite, it demonstrates a commitment to effective risk management. This approach is ethically sound as it prioritizes the protection of sensitive data and systems while being fiscally responsible. It adheres to the principles of due diligence and prudent management of organizational assets. An incorrect approach that prioritizes cost savings over adequate risk mitigation fails to meet professional standards. This could lead to a situation where the organization is exposed to unacceptable levels of risk, potentially resulting in data breaches, service disruptions, or reputational damage. Such a failure to implement necessary security measures, even if driven by budget constraints, can be viewed as a breach of professional duty to protect the organization's interests and could have regulatory implications if it violates data protection laws or industry-specific compliance requirements. Another incorrect approach that overinvests in security controls that are not directly relevant to the identified risks represents poor resource allocation. While the intention might be to enhance security, it diverts funds from potentially more critical areas and does not efficiently address the specific threat. This can be seen as a failure in strategic planning and risk prioritization, leading to wasted resources and a false sense of security. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment framework. This includes identifying assets, threats, vulnerabilities, and potential impacts. Following this, a thorough evaluation of available mitigation strategies should be conducted, considering their effectiveness, cost, and operational feasibility. The decision should then be made based on a clear understanding of the organization's risk tolerance and compliance obligations, ensuring that the chosen controls provide the best possible balance of security and value. Question 13. To address the challenge of ensuring a newly designed Cisco cloud solution meets all applicable data residency and privacy regulations, which stakeholder engagement strategy is most critical for a successful and compliant deployment? Option A. Relying solely on the compliance certifications of the cloud service providers without assessing specific data handling needs. Option B. Deferring legal and compliance review until after the cloud solution has been fully designed and implemented. Option C. Prioritizing only technical performance and cost efficiency in the cloud design, with minimal consideration for legal and compliance implications. Option D. Engaging legal and compliance teams early and continuously throughout the design process to incorporate regulatory requirements into architectural decisions. The correct answer is D. Engaging legal and compliance teams early and continuously throughout the design process to incorporate regulatory requirements into architectural decisions. Explanation. Scenario analysis. Designing a Cisco cloud solution involves navigating a complex landscape of stakeholder needs, technical feasibility, and regulatory compliance. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate business objectives of cost reduction and agility with the long-term implications of data residency, security, and service availability. Stakeholders, such as finance departments, IT operations, and legal/compliance teams, often have competing priorities and varying levels of understanding regarding cloud technologies and their associated risks. A failure to adequately consider the perspective of a critical stakeholder group, like legal and compliance, can lead to significant rework, project delays, and potential legal ramifications. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes early and continuous engagement with the legal and compliance stakeholders. This ensures that the cloud design adheres to all relevant regulations from the outset. In the context of the Cisco Cloud Exam 300-465, this implies understanding and applying principles related to data protection, privacy, and industry-specific compliance frameworks that might be relevant in a Cisco-centric cloud deployment. By involving them in the design process, potential compliance gaps are identified and addressed proactively, preventing costly remediation efforts later. This aligns with best professional practice by embedding a risk-aware and compliant design philosophy, which is crucial for building trust and ensuring the long-term viability of the cloud solution. It demonstrates a commitment to responsible cloud adoption, minimizing legal exposure and reputational damage. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to defer legal and compliance review until the cloud solution is fully designed and implemented. This creates a significant regulatory failure because it assumes compliance can be retrofitted, which is rarely the case with complex cloud architectures and data handling. Regulations often dictate architectural choices, data storage locations, and access controls. Retrofitting these requirements can be technically infeasible or prohibitively expensive, leading to non-compliance and potential penalties. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the organization's legal obligations. Another incorrect approach is to assume that standard cloud provider compliance certifications are sufficient without understanding the specific data and application context. While providers like Cisco offer robust compliance features, the responsibility for ensuring compliance with specific regulations, e.g., GDPR, HIPAA, or local data residency laws, ultimately rests with the organization deploying the solution. Relying solely on provider certifications without a thorough understanding of how the deployed services interact with sensitive data is a regulatory failure. It overlooks the shared responsibility model in cloud security and compliance, leading to potential breaches of regulatory mandates. A third incorrect approach is to prioritize only the technical and cost-saving aspects of the cloud design, neglecting the legal and compliance implications entirely. This is a critical ethical and regulatory failure. It suggests a short-sighted view that prioritizes immediate gains over long-term stability and legal standing. Such an approach can lead to the deployment of solutions that inadvertently violate data privacy laws, expose sensitive information, or fail to meet industry-specific compliance standards, resulting in severe legal consequences, fines, and loss of customer trust. Professional reasoning. Professionals designing cloud solutions must adopt a holistic approach that integrates technical, business, and regulatory considerations. The decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying all relevant stakeholders and their concerns, with particular emphasis on legal and compliance teams. 2. Establishing clear communication channels and regular touchpoints with these stakeholders throughout the design lifecycle. 3. Proactively researching and understanding applicable regulations and compliance frameworks relevant to the organization's industry and geographic locations. 4. Incorporating compliance requirements as non-negotiable design constraints from the initial stages. 5. Conducting thorough risk assessments that include regulatory and legal risks. 6. Documenting all compliance-related decisions and justifications. 7. Implementing continuous monitoring and auditing mechanisms to ensure ongoing compliance post-deployment. Question 14. Regulatory review indicates that a U.S.-based financial services firm is designing a new cloud-based customer onboarding process. The primary goal is to significantly reduce the time it takes to onboard new clients while maintaining the highest levels of data security and regulatory compliance. Which approach best balances process optimization with the absolute priority of meeting U.S. financial regulatory requirements? Option A. Prioritize the adoption of the most advanced, automated cloud services that offer the fastest processing speeds, assuming the cloud provider's standard security and compliance certifications are sufficient for financial data. Option B. Focus solely on optimizing the user experience for the onboarding process, deferring detailed security and compliance reviews to a later phase to avoid delaying the project timeline. Option C. Implement process optimizations rapidly to gain a competitive advantage, with a plan to address any potential compliance gaps identified during post-implementation audits. Option D. Conduct a detailed risk assessment and compliance validation for each proposed process optimization step, ensuring that data handling, access controls, and audit logging meet or exceed the requirements of regulations such as the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA, before implementation. The correct answer is A. Prioritize the adoption of the most advanced, automated cloud services that offer the fastest processing speeds, assuming the cloud provider's standard security and compliance certifications are sufficient for financial data. Explanation. Scenario analysis. Designing a cloud solution for a financial services organization in the United States presents significant challenges due to stringent regulatory requirements, particularly concerning data privacy, security, and operational resilience. The need to optimize processes for efficiency must be balanced against the absolute imperative of compliance with regulations like the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA, and potentially state-specific data breach notification laws. Failure to adhere to these regulations can result in severe financial penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. The complexity arises from ensuring that process optimization efforts do not inadvertently create new vulnerabilities or compromise existing compliance controls. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive risk assessment and compliance validation integrated into the process optimization lifecycle. This ensures that any proposed optimization is evaluated not only for its efficiency gains, but also for its impact on regulatory adherence. Specifically, it means verifying that data handling, access controls, audit trails, and disaster recovery mechanisms meet or exceed the requirements of GLBA and other relevant U.S. financial regulations. This proactive, compliance-first methodology is best professional practice because it embeds regulatory considerations at the design stage, preventing costly remediation and potential non-compliance issues down the line. It aligns with the ethical obligation to protect sensitive customer data and maintain the integrity of financial operations. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing process optimization without a thorough regulatory impact assessment is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This could involve adopting new cloud services or reconfiguring existing ones based solely on cost or performance metrics, without considering how these changes affect data segregation, encryption standards, or incident response capabilities mandated by U.S. financial regulations. Another failure would be to assume that cloud providers' general compliance certifications automatically satisfy the specific requirements for a financial institution, neglecting the shared responsibility model and the need for tailored controls. Prioritizing speed of deployment over a robust compliance review can lead to violations of data privacy laws, inadequate security measures, and ultimately, a breach of trust and legal obligations. Professional reasoning. Professionals designing cloud solutions for regulated industries must adopt a risk-based, compliance-driven decision-making framework. This involves 1. Understanding the specific regulatory landscape applicable to the industry and jurisdiction, e.g., GLBA in the U.S. for financial services. 2. Conducting thorough due diligence on cloud service providers, focusing on their security and compliance controls relevant to the organization's specific needs. 3. Integrating compliance requirements into every stage of the design and implementation process, from initial requirements gathering to ongoing monitoring. 4. Establishing clear lines of responsibility for compliance between the organization and the cloud provider. 5. Regularly reviewing and updating the cloud architecture and processes to ensure continued adherence to evolving regulations and threat landscapes. Question 15. Market research demonstrates that a leading cloud provider offers a highly integrated, proprietary suite of services that significantly accelerates application deployment and offers advanced AI capabilities not readily available in open-source alternatives. However, adopting this suite would deeply embed the client's infrastructure within this provider's ecosystem, potentially leading to substantial vendor lock-in and increased long-term operational costs due to proprietary licensing and data egress fees. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible approach to designing the cloud solution in this scenario? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive evaluation of the proprietary suite, including a detailed total cost of ownership analysis that quantifies potential vendor lock-in risks and long-term egress costs, while simultaneously exploring and evaluating alternative open-source and multi-cloud solutions to ensure a balanced recommendation that prioritizes the client's long-term strategic and financial interests. Option B. Reject the proprietary suite outright and exclusively focus on open-source solutions to avoid any form of vendor lock-in, even if it means compromising on certain advanced features or deployment speed. Option C. Accept a referral bonus from the cloud provider for recommending their proprietary suite, ensuring the client is unaware of this incentive. Option D. Recommend the proprietary suite immediately due to its superior performance and advanced features, as these immediate benefits outweigh any potential future risks associated with vendor lock-in. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive evaluation of the proprietary suite, including a detailed total cost of ownership analysis that quantifies potential vendor lock-in risks and long-term egress costs, while simultaneously exploring and evaluating alternative open-source and multi-cloud solutions to ensure a balanced recommendation that prioritizes the client's long-term strategic and financial interests. Explanation. The scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in cloud design, where a vendor's proprietary solution offers significant advantages but introduces vendor lock-in, potentially impacting long-term cost and flexibility. The challenge lies in balancing immediate performance and feature benefits against the strategic risks of deep integration with a single provider. Careful judgment is required to ensure the design aligns with the client's business objectives, risk tolerance, and future scalability needs, all within the bounds of responsible technology adoption. The correct approach prioritizes a thorough, objective evaluation of all viable solutions, including open standards and multi-cloud strategies, alongside the vendor-specific offering. This involves a comprehensive total cost of ownership, TCO, analysis that accounts for potential egress fees, migration costs, and the long-term impact of vendor lock-in. It also necessitates transparent communication with the client about the trade-offs involved. This approach represents best professional practice because it adheres to principles of fiduciary duty, ensuring the client's best interests are paramount. It aligns with ethical guidelines that emphasize informed consent, transparency, and the avoidance of conflicts of interest. By exploring alternatives and quantifying risks, the design process upholds professional integrity and promotes sustainable, adaptable cloud infrastructure. An incorrect approach that solely focuses on the immediate benefits of the proprietary solution without adequately assessing long-term risks or exploring alternatives fails to uphold the duty of care. This could lead to a design that is technically superior in the short term but strategically detrimental, exposing the client to unforeseen costs and operational constraints. Such an approach risks violating ethical principles by not providing a balanced perspective and potentially prioritizing the vendor's interests or the designer's ease of implementation over the client's long-term well-being. Another incorrect approach that dismisses the proprietary solution outright without a fair evaluation of its merits, even if driven by a preference for open standards, is also professionally unsound. This can lead to suboptimal design choices if the proprietary solution genuinely offers unique, indispensable capabilities that cannot be replicated by open-source alternatives without significant compromise. This failure to objectively assess all options can result in a design that is less efficient or effective, failing to meet the client's specific requirements. A third incorrect approach that involves accepting undisclosed incentives from the vendor for recommending their proprietary solution represents a clear conflict of interest and a severe ethical breach. This directly undermines the professional's integrity and the client's trust, violating fundamental ethical obligations to act impartially and in the client's best interest. Such actions can have legal ramifications and permanently damage professional reputation. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk-benefit analysis, a comprehensive TCO assessment, and a clear understanding of the client's strategic goals and risk appetite. It requires open and honest communication about all viable options, their associated risks and benefits, and the rationale behind the final recommendation. Prioritizing transparency, objectivity, and the client's long-term success is the cornerstone of ethical cloud design. Question 16. Consider a scenario where a cloud architect is tasked with designing a new cloud infrastructure for a client that handles sensitive personal data. The architect discovers a new, cost-effective cloud service provider that offers advanced features, but has limited publicly available information regarding its specific data protection certifications and compliance audits. The client is eager to leverage the cost savings and advanced features. What is the most responsible course of action for the cloud architect? Option A. Conduct a thorough due diligence process on the new cloud provider, including verifying their security certifications, data handling policies, and compliance with relevant data protection regulations before recommending or proceeding with the migration. Option B. Migrate a small, non-sensitive subset of data to the new provider first to evaluate its security and performance before migrating the full dataset. Option C. Proceed with the migration to the new cloud provider, prioritizing the client's desire for cost savings and advanced features, and address any potential security or compliance issues after the migration is complete. Option D. Recommend the new cloud provider based on the cost savings and advanced features, assuming that a reputable provider would inherently meet necessary security and compliance standards. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough due diligence process on the new cloud provider, including verifying their security certifications, data handling policies, and compliance with relevant data protection regulations before recommending or proceeding with the migration. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical considerations of data privacy and security within cloud design, specifically concerning the handling of sensitive customer information. The core dilemma lies in balancing the perceived benefits of a new, potentially more efficient cloud service with the regulatory obligations and ethical responsibilities to protect customer data. The Cisco 300-465 exam focuses on designing secure and efficient cloud solutions, which inherently includes understanding and adhering to data protection principles. The correct approach prioritizes compliance with data protection regulations and maintaining customer trust by thoroughly vetting the new cloud provider's security posture, data handling policies, and compliance certifications against relevant regulations, e.g., GDPR if applicable to the customer base, or other relevant data privacy laws within the exam's assumed jurisdiction. The cloud architect ensures that customer data remains protected and that the organization avoids legal repercussions and reputational damage. This aligns with the ethical imperative to act in the best interest of the client and their customers. An incorrect approach that involves immediately migrating without due diligence fails to uphold the duty of care owed to customers and the organization. This could lead to breaches of data privacy regulations, resulting in significant fines and legal liabilities. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for customer trust and data security. Another incorrect approach, which involves proceeding with the migration based solely on cost savings without a comprehensive risk assessment, overlooks the potential for hidden costs associated with security incidents or compliance failures. This is a short-sighted decision that prioritizes immediate financial gains over long-term security and compliance. Finally, an approach that involves migrating sensitive data first to assess security post-migration is inherently risky and violates the principle of security by design. It assumes a level of trust in the new provider that has not been verified, potentially exposing sensitive data to unauthorized access or loss before adequate safeguards are in place. Professionals should employ a risk-based decision-making framework. This involves identifying potential risks, assessing their likelihood and impact, and implementing controls to mitigate them. In cloud design, this translates to a thorough vendor assessment, understanding data residency requirements, implementing robust security controls, and ensuring ongoing compliance monitoring. The process should always begin with a clear understanding of regulatory requirements and ethical obligations before considering technological or financial benefits. Question 17. The investigation demonstrates that different business units within an organization are independently exploring and adopting various cloud-based software as a service (SaaS) solutions to meet specific operational needs, leading to a fragmented security and compliance landscape. The primary challenge is to design a cloud strategy that enforces a consistent security baseline and adheres to regulatory requirements without stifling innovation or agility. Which design approach best addresses this challenge? Option A. Mandate that all cloud adoption must occur through a single, monolithic, on-premises private cloud infrastructure to maintain maximum control, even if it limits access to cutting-edge SaaS functionalities. Option B. Focus exclusively on encrypting all data at rest and in transit for any cloud service adopted, assuming this single control will satisfy all regulatory and security obligations. Option C. Implement a centralized cloud security governance framework that defines baseline security controls, data residency requirements, and acceptable use policies for all cloud services, while providing a catalog of pre-approved, secure SaaS solutions for common business needs. Option D. Allow each business unit to select and implement their preferred SaaS solution, with the IT security team performing reactive security audits on an as-needed basis to identify and remediate potential risks. The correct answer is C. Implement a centralized cloud security governance framework that defines baseline security controls, data residency requirements, and acceptable use policies for all cloud services, while providing a catalog of pre-approved, secure SaaS solutions for common business needs. Explanation. The investigation demonstrates a common challenge in cloud design, balancing the need for robust security controls with the operational agility and cost-effectiveness required by business units. Specifically, the scenario highlights the tension between implementing a comprehensive, centralized security posture and allowing individual teams to adopt cloud services that meet their immediate needs. This requires a deep understanding of the organization's risk appetite, regulatory compliance obligations, and the technical capabilities of various cloud solutions. The professional challenge lies in architecting a cloud environment that is both secure and enabling, rather than restrictive. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a unified security strategy that aligns with the organization's overall compliance framework and risk management policies. By establishing a baseline of security controls and governance mechanisms before widespread adoption, the design ensures that all cloud deployments adhere to minimum security standards, thereby reducing the attack surface and mitigating potential compliance violations. This proactive, policy-driven approach is essential for maintaining a secure and compliant cloud environment, especially when dealing with sensitive data or operating in regulated industries. It fosters a culture of security awareness and responsibility across the organization. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on rapid deployment without adequate security review poses significant regulatory and ethical failures. It risks non-compliance with data protection regulations, e.g., GDPR, HIPAA, if applicable to the exam's jurisdiction, by potentially exposing sensitive data to unauthorized access or processing. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for the organization's responsibility to protect customer and stakeholder data. Another incorrect approach that overemphasizes restrictive, centralized controls without considering business needs can lead to shadow IT, where teams bypass approved channels to adopt insecure, unmanaged solutions, creating a different but equally dangerous compliance and security gap. This also represents a failure in professional judgment by not adequately understanding the business context. A third incorrect approach that relies on ad hoc security measures without a defined framework is inherently unstable and prone to oversight, leading to inconsistent security postures and increased vulnerability. This reflects a lack of strategic planning and a failure to establish a repeatable, auditable security process. Professional reasoning in such situations requires a structured decision-making process. This involves 1. Understanding the business requirements and risk tolerance of different departments. 2. Identifying relevant regulatory and compliance mandates applicable to the organization's operations. 3. Evaluating potential cloud solutions against these requirements, focusing on their security features, compliance certifications, and integration capabilities. 4. Developing a cloud security architecture that incorporates both foundational controls and flexible mechanisms for specific workloads. 5. Establishing clear governance policies and procedures for cloud adoption and management. 6. Continuously monitoring and adapting the security posture as the cloud environment evolves. Question 18. Upon reviewing the proposed design for a new customer-facing application to be deployed on a public cloud platform, the engineering team has highlighted the need for rapid deployment to meet market demand. However, concerns have been raised regarding the potential for security vulnerabilities if certain security controls are deferred to a later phase to accelerate the initial launch. What is the most appropriate approach to ensure both timely delivery and robust security? Option A. Rely on the cloud provider's default security configurations, assuming they are sufficient for the application's needs, and address any specific security gaps only if they are identified during post-launch operational monitoring. Option B. Conduct a thorough threat modeling exercise and risk assessment early in the design phase, integrating essential security controls such as identity and access management, network segmentation, and data encryption into the initial deployment plan. Option C. Focus exclusively on application performance and scalability for the initial launch, with a commitment to address security concerns only after the application has achieved a significant user base and proven its market viability. Option D. Implement a phased security rollout, prioritizing core application functionality for the initial launch and deferring advanced security controls like granular access policies and comprehensive threat detection to a subsequent update. Correct answer is D. Implement a phased security rollout, prioritizing core application functionality for the initial launch and deferring advanced security controls like granular access policies and comprehensive threat detection to a subsequent update. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud design, balancing the need for rapid deployment and agility with the imperative to maintain robust security and compliance. The pressure to deliver a new service quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise security posture, potentially exposing sensitive data or violating regulatory requirements. The professional challenge lies in identifying and mitigating these risks proactively, ensuring that the design adheres to established security principles and any applicable regulatory frameworks without unduly hindering business objectives. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive security assessment integrated into the design lifecycle. This includes identifying potential threats, vulnerabilities, and compliance requirements early on. Implementing security controls such as identity and access management (IAM), network segmentation, data encryption, and continuous monitoring is crucial. This proactive and layered security strategy ensures that the cloud environment is designed with security and compliance as foundational elements, rather than as an afterthought. This aligns with best practices for secure cloud architecture and demonstrates due diligence in protecting organizational assets and meeting regulatory obligations. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to prioritize speed of deployment over security consideration, assuming that security can be retrofitted later. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It violates the principle of security by design, which is often implicitly or explicitly required by regulations governing data protection and privacy. Retrofitting security is often more costly, less effective, and carries a higher risk of introducing new vulnerabilities. It also exposes the organization to potential breaches and non-compliance penalties during the period the insecure system is operational. Another incorrect approach is to rely solely on the cloud provider's default security settings without customization or independent verification. While cloud providers offer robust security features, they operate on a shared responsibility model. The customer is responsible for configuring and managing security within their deployed environment. Failing to tailor these settings to specific organizational needs and compliance mandates can lead to misconfigurations, leaving critical assets exposed. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and can result in regulatory noncompliance, as the organization has not adequately secured its own data and applications. A third incorrect approach is to overlook the need for comprehensive logging and monitoring. Without adequate visibility into system activity, it becomes impossible to detect and respond to security incidents in a timely manner. This failure can lead to prolonged breaches, increased data loss, and significant reputational damage. From a regulatory standpoint, many frameworks mandate the ability to audit system access and activity, making the absence of robust logging a direct violation. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to cloud design. This involves understanding the business requirements, identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities, and assessing the impact of those risks. Security and compliance should be integrated into every stage of the design process, from initial planning to deployment and ongoing operations. This requires collaboration between security teams, development teams, and business stakeholders. Regular reviews, threat modeling, and adherence to established security frameworks and best practices are essential for building secure and compliant cloud solutions. Question 19. The control framework reveals that a new cloud-based customer relationship management (CRM) system is being considered, which will integrate with several existing on-premises and cloud-based applications. The integration will involve sharing sensitive customer data. The project team is under significant pressure to launch the new CRM system within the next quarter to meet aggressive sales targets. What is the most appropriate approach to ensure the security and compliance of this integration? Option A. Prioritize the rapid deployment of the CRM system to meet sales targets, with security and compliance reviews to be conducted post-launch as part of ongoing operational management. Option B. Focus solely on the functional requirements and technical compatibility of the third-party integrations, assuming that standard security protocols will be sufficient. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive security risk assessment and validate the compliance posture of all third-party integration components and their data handling practices before proceeding with deployment. Option D. Proceed with the integration of the CRM system and its core functionalities, deferring detailed security and compliance validation of third-party components until after the initial launch phase. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive security risk assessment and validate the compliance posture of all third-party integration components and their data handling practices before proceeding with deployment. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud design, balancing the need for rapid deployment and innovation with the imperative to maintain robust security and compliance. The pressure to deliver new services quickly can lead to shortcuts in security assessments and a lack of thorough validation of third-party integrations. This creates a risk of introducing vulnerabilities or non-compliance into the cloud environment, which can have significant financial, reputational, and legal consequences. The challenge lies in establishing a process that is both agile and secure, ensuring that security and compliance are integrated into the design and deployment lifecycle, rather than being an afterthought. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a proactive and integrated security and compliance strategy. By mandating a comprehensive risk assessment and security validation for all third-party integrations before deployment, it aligns with best practices for secure cloud adoption. This approach ensures that potential vulnerabilities and compliance gaps are identified and mitigated early in the design phase. This is crucial for adhering to regulatory frameworks that require due diligence in managing third-party risk and maintaining data integrity and privacy. It fosters a culture of security by design, which is a cornerstone of robust cloud governance. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves prioritizing speed of deployment over security validation. This directly violates the principle of due diligence and risk management. Regulatory frameworks often mandate that organizations understand and control the risks associated with their IT infrastructure, including third-party components. Deploying unvetted integrations can lead to data breaches, non-compliance with data protection laws e.g. GDPR if applicable, or equivalent U.S. regulations like HIPAA for healthcare data, and significant financial penalties. Another incorrect approach, which defers security reviews until after deployment, is equally problematic. This reactive stance means that vulnerabilities may already be exploited, or compliance issues may have already occurred before they are even identified. This significantly increases the potential damage and the cost of remediation. It demonstrates a failure to implement effective internal controls and a disregard for the principle of continuous monitoring and improvement, which are often regulatory requirements. A third incorrect approach, focusing solely on the functionality of third-party integrations without considering their security posture or compliance implications, is a critical oversight. Functionality alone does not guarantee security or adherence to legal and regulatory obligations. This approach ignores the broader responsibility of protecting sensitive data and maintaining a secure operational environment, which is a fundamental ethical and regulatory expectation. Professional reasoning. Professionals designing cloud solutions must adopt a risk-based approach that integrates security and compliance throughout the entire lifecycle. This involves establishing clear policies and procedures for evaluating and approving third-party integrations, conducting thorough security assessments, and ensuring ongoing monitoring. The decision-making process should prioritize understanding the potential impact of any integration on the organization's security posture and compliance obligations. When faced with pressure to accelerate deployment, professionals should advocate for the necessary security and compliance steps, clearly articulating the risks of bypassing them. This requires strong communication skills, a deep understanding of relevant regulations, and the ability to influence stakeholders to adopt secure practices. Question 20. Examination of the data shows that a U.S.-based financial services firm is planning to migrate its customer data and core banking applications to a public cloud environment. The primary objective is to enhance scalability and reduce operational costs. However, the firm handles highly sensitive personally identifiable information, PI, and financial transaction data, making regulatory compliance a critical concern. Which design approach best balances the firm's objectives with its absolute regulatory obligations under U.S. law? Option A. Design the cloud architecture with a primary focus on leveraging the most cost-effective cloud services available, assuming that standard cloud security features will inherently meet regulatory requirements for data protection. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive regulatory impact assessment to identify all applicable U.S. financial regulations, e.g., GLBA, and then design the cloud architecture with security and compliance controls that directly map to these requirements, selecting cloud services with proven compliance attestations. Option C. Prioritize the adoption of cutting-edge, cloud-native services to maximize innovation and agility, deferring detailed regulatory compliance checks until after the initial migration is complete. Option D. Implement a direct lift and shift migration of existing on-premises applications and data to the cloud, relying on the inherited security configurations of the legacy systems to maintain compliance. The correct answer is A. Design the cloud architecture with a primary focus on leveraging the most cost-effective cloud services available, assuming that standard cloud security features will inherently meet regulatory requirements for data protection. Explanation. Scenario analysis. Designing a cloud solution for a financial services organization in the United States presents significant professional challenges due to the stringent regulatory landscape. The primary challenge lies in balancing the benefits of cloud adoption, such as scalability and agility, with the absolute necessity of maintaining data security, privacy, and compliance with regulations like the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA, and potentially others depending on the specific financial services offered, e.g., SEC regulations for investment advisors. Failure to adhere to these regulations can result in severe financial penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. Therefore, a meticulous and risk-aware design approach is paramount, requiring deep understanding of both cloud technologies and applicable U.S. financial regulations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive risk assessment that explicitly considers regulatory requirements as a foundational element of the cloud design. This means identifying all applicable U.S. federal and state regulations relevant to the financial data being handled, such as GLBA Safeguards Rule, which mandates the implementation of administrative, technical, and physical safeguards to protect customer information. The design must then incorporate security controls and architectural patterns that directly address these regulatory mandates. For instance, data encryption at rest and in transit, robust access controls, least privilege, audit logging, and incident response capabilities are not merely best practices but often regulatory imperatives. Choosing cloud services that offer specific compliance certifications, e.g., FedRAMP for government data, though not directly applicable here, it signifies a level of security rigor, or have strong contractual assurances regarding data protection and auditability is crucial. This approach ensures that the cloud solution is not only technically sound, but also legally defensible and ethically responsible, safeguarding sensitive financial data and the organization's compliance posture. Incorrect approaches analysis, prioritizing cost optimization above all other design considerations, without a thorough regulatory impact analysis, is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. While cost is a factor, it cannot supersede the legal obligations to protect customer data. This approach risks implementing a solution that, while cheap, fails to meet GLBA or other relevant requirements, leading to non-compliance and potential breaches. Focusing solely on adopting the latest cloud-native technologies without verifying their compliance implications is another critical failure. New technologies may offer advanced features, but their security and privacy controls might not yet be mature enough or adequately documented to meet the stringent requirements of financial regulations. This can lead to an insecure or non-compliant architecture, exposing the organization to legal and financial repercussions. Implementing a lift and shift migration strategy without re-evaluating security and compliance controls in the cloud environment is also professionally unacceptable. The security perimeter and control mechanisms differ significantly between on-premises and cloud environments. A direct migration without adapting security and compliance measures to the cloud's shared responsibility model and specific cloud security best practices will likely leave gaps, violating regulatory mandates for data protection. Professional reasoning. Professionals designing cloud solutions for regulated industries must adopt a risk-based, compliance-first methodology. This involves 1. Regulatory identification, proactively identifying all applicable federal and state regulations. 2. Risk assessment, conducting a thorough risk assessment that maps regulatory requirements to potential cloud vulnerabilities and threats. 3. Control mapping, designing security and compliance controls that directly address identified risks and regulatory mandates. 4. Vendor due diligence, selecting cloud service providers and technologies that demonstrate a commitment to security and compliance with clear contractual assurances. 5. Continuous monitoring and auditing, establishing processes for ongoing monitoring, auditing, and adaptation to evolving regulatory landscapes and threat environments. This structured approach ensures that the cloud design is not only technically robust, but also legally compliant and ethically sound, protecting both the organization and its customers.